Hey guys, Ashley here, and today we are going to talk about something that I don't think I've talked about in a really long time. And I feel like it's time for an update. So, today we're going to talk about the 5 common stages of spiritual awakening. And most importantly, the benefit of understanding each stage of the process. Now, here's the thing though, I have seen so many types of stages and levels and understandings of spiritual awakening. And I know there's like 21 stages and 9 stages and 10 stages, and this is going to be slightly different. What I really want to cover here is these are the 5 most common stages of spiritual awakening, of what I've personally seen, witnessed, experienced, and heard from numerous clients, heard from numerous people over the years. I've been on the awakening path since over 11 years now, going on 12. My personal anniversary is 11/11/11, and most importantly, I feel like with 11/11/11 coming, I wanted to do a special video honoring the 5 common stages of spiritual awakening. So let's dive in. Hey guys, so it's Ashley here from theawakenedstate.net. If you don't know me, I am a teacher on manifestation, energy work, mind-body healing work, the mind-body connection, Kundalini Awakening, and I love to talk all things chakras. So thank you for tuning in. If you like our videos, please subscribe. I got to do all this housekeeping stuff so we can get more people on the channel. And if you do like our videos, please click the little bell so you can get instant notifications. We drop one every Friday or Saturday if I'm feeling a little bit tired. And just being transparent. And when we think about spiritual awakening, what I really want to discuss today is what I've typically noticed is there's 5 stages that I've personally seen and witnessed that have really kind of stood in this evolution of where we're at right now as a collective. And this is just from my lens of consciousness. You know, everyone has different perceptions of spiritual awakening. I think that's a good disclaimer going into this. Everyone has this particular interpretation of it. This is just personally what I've witnessed, discovered, and also I feel what is the most beneficial when it comes to spiritual awakening. So at the Awakened State, a lot of our core mission is really focused on bridging the gap between the spiritual self and the material self, the energetic self and the physical self. And our critical moment of awareness is when we do have a spiritual awakening. It's like we've suddenly realized that we have created this gap that created the illusion of separation with our spiritual self. And because of that, we've really entered this space where we are learning to dissolve the gap. And we're learning to dissolve the gap between our spiritual self and our physical self. So when it comes to understanding these stages, I think we have to almost backtrack a little. So, you know, I had my spiritual awakening around 11/11/11, and I saw energy for the first time. And I'm going to write about this in my book. So be on the lookout for my book when it comes out on spiritual awakening. And what I'm really began to notice is that there's this pattern. Everyone who has a spiritual awakening really comes to this potent conclusion that we're more than just physical beings. They understand there's an energy world. They understand that there's a spiritual world. They may have had these realizations growing up, but they were suppressed. They may have had these realizations of like magic and supernatural things happen to them, or ghosts, or like I remember like our family was always obsessed with like Ouija boards and tarot. And while it was always kind of like shush shush, like we wouldn't like talk about it, but at the same time there was this mystical magicalness of like it was always present because it was just a part of us. And like I think there's this, it's almost like for those who are on the spiritual awakening path, there was a point in time when you were growing up, or you always knew that you were different. Like, you always knew that there was this part of you that was kind of special or supernatural or mystical, or you knew that you were naturally intuitive, even if that part of you was suppressed in some form or another. And I think when we go into these stages, one of the hugest things I want you to be aware of is how it's almost like a part of us just starts to come online. And when we understand that for years, maybe we've been suppressing this intuitive, feminine, like supernatural part of ourselves as something that's abnormal, wrong, bad, evil, crazy. And instead, we start to realize that we move more into like, this is normal. This is part of reality. I may be different from others, but at the same time, I understand the world in such a potent and profound way that others would probably only dream of or feel that they could experience in movies. But yet, somehow I've been gifted with this ability of seeing energy, feeling energy, knowing energy, seeing into different dimensions of consciousness. And it's important to honor that part of you, to not be scared of that part of you, to not fear your power wherever you are on the path, like to acknowledge that you hold the ability to own that part of you, to own that gift inside of you, and to really acknowledge that instead of suppressing your intuition, to start embracing your intuition, start embracing the intuitive part of you, that energetic side of you that's connected to your highest self energy. And when we start to look at spiritual awakening from this different lens of like expanding and evolving our consciousness, like, I think over the years, my interpretation of it has drastically shifted. And I think it's important to realize that this ain't my first rodeo. Like, I have been like interviewing, researching, experiencing, having DMT experiences, ego deaths. I've, had supernatural experiences. I've had experiences where I saw energy, had out of body experiences. I've, had ego death happen to me at least twice. And so it's not like I'm just a noob here to just say, this is how it is. This is literally my interpretation from years of experience. And I think it's important to understand that, because my interpretation of evolving consciousness has drastically shifted. I definitely drank the New Age Kool-Aid at one point, and, was like reading the Federal Galactic Federation of Light videos or channelings. I don't even remember what it was. And like, I've been there, I was here for the 2012 crazy and the apocalypse and how we survived the apocalypse. And, I was totally there, and I get it. But I've also seen like such a grounded way to look at this. And I think that's what's really cool about what I'm about to share, is I've seen like this connection between how we perceive ourselves from the physical level and how we perceive ourselves from the spiritual, energetic level. So I'm not going to fly off the tangent. Let's just dive into the phases. So here's the thing. Phase 1. I believe phase 1 is really about, I'm going to shift a little so we can get a nice little graphic going on. So phase 1 is about really looking at misalignment. Phase 1 is all about misalignment, because misalignment is the person who is unaware that they are experiencing the symptoms of awakening. So this is the person where maybe they're having a dark night of the soul experience. Maybe they're having drastic symptoms starting to appear. Maybe that physical density kind of happened where they're experiencing flu-like symptoms. They're experiencing physical body changes. They're experiencing that, like, where it's almost like everything is in upheaval. And so either like, you know, like life experiences are starting to occur where it has drastic endings, where you're starting to experience abrupt life change. You might be experiencing the classic ascension symptoms where you're having like, you're seeing energy for the first time, you're having out of body experiences, you're questioning life, you're questioning reality, you're questioning who you are, you're questioning your purpose in life. You might be having these experiences where you're just having drastic misalignment occurring, where it's like nothing is working. Like there's so much shit hit the fan that it's like you have to change or else, because things are not working, and now you're starting to see that they're not working. So it's like you're in this space where you're either maybe a victim mentality because you feel a victim over circumstance and you're just like, but why is this happening to me? Why is all of this occurring? And at the same time, you might also be experiencing a bit like of that fearful, like almost like terrifying vibe of what is going on? Am I crazy? Like, why is this occurring to me? I feel a little bit crazy for like, am I seeing energy? Do I need to get my eyes checked? I remember when I first awakened, I literally like, I had to go to the eye doctor and make sure that my eyes were okay, because I kept having like, I would see energy like tracers around objects, and I would start to see like energy, and I would feel energy. And so I started to really be like paranoid that there was something wrong with my eyesight. And so I literally had to get checked out, and I was fine. But they're like, yeah, you have perfect normal eyesight. There's nothing wrong. And I'm just like, are you sure? And so I totally get that. So it's like in the first stage, we feel that misalignment, like things are like shit is hitting the fan. We're experiencing the ascension symptoms. If you don't know what the ascension symptoms are, on my website, if you go to awakening or beginner section, it will show you the symptoms. And what occurs from that is it's like everything just starts to turn online. But we're not aware of it yet. Like we're literally running around with our eyes closed, but we're like, why is this happening to me? I am going crazy. This is weird. This is abnormal. Is there something wrong with me? Is there something wrong with like my brain? Is there something wrong with who I am? Why am I experiencing this? This is like so much upheaval that like the energy is like uprooted. And when we experience that, it's like this stage where we're unaware that we're having a spiritual awakening, but we're starting to experience all of the symptoms of a spiritual awakening. I'm sure if you've been in this stage, you definitely can relate to some degree, where it's like, am I crazy? What is going on? Why am I seeing this ball of light? Why am I experiencing this? Why is my hands vibrating? Why am I having out-of-body experiences? All of these things are very common occurrences in the first stage of awakening. The benefit in this stage is to start to bring awareness to the fact that you are experiencing a spiritual awakening. And the benefit of this stage is that your intuition, your intuitive abilities, all of this stuff is starting to come online. And you're basically like a newborn who has just opened their eyes to a new world. And because of this experience in the first stage, we see ourselves as more than just a physical being. And we start to see that there's an energetic world that we can tap into. And while we're terrified or freaked out, or at the same time, we're like, wow, this is beautiful. This is magical. This is amazing. At the same time, I'm freaking out and I don't know if I'm insane or not. That energy is showing you the benefit that you are more than just a spiritual or a physical being. So then we enter the space of stage 2. Somehow we learn that we are experiencing a spiritual awakening. So what occurs normally is we were in the unawareness stage. Now we've moved into awareness. We're aware that we're having a spiritual awakening. So we're aware that, shit, I am having a spiritual awakening. This is pretty surreal. Wow, I have so many questions. I literally am bombarded with so many questions. What does this mean? What is happening to me? What is energy work? What is energy healing? How do I understand myself? How do I navigate this? How do I understand this change that is happening in my life? A big core mission of the Awakened State has always been about how can we navigate change positively in a state of emotional empowerment in our awakening journey? How can we learn to navigate change? How can we learn to navigate change in a successful way? And so in stage 2 or phase 2, we're really saying, shit, I'm having a spiritual awakening and I am now bombarded with so many questions. I am in this space where I am hungry for information. I need to understand what's happening to me. I understand that I'm experiencing these symptoms, and because I'm experiencing these symptoms, I'm going through these like physical changes, these mental changes, these emotional changes. And what's occurring is all of this, like your intuitive energetic side is literally starting to come online. So it's like before we were suppressing that part of ourselves and it was laying dormant. And then all of a sudden Kundalini awakening occurs and all of this energy rises upward and we begin to experience all of this physical change and mental change and emotional change through those symptoms, because our intuition, our highest self, the part of us that is literally connected to the energy world, is starting to come online. And so what we begin to see is we start to see that, oh shit, there was a gap I was creating between the physical self and the material and the spiritual self, and I'm starting to bridge this gap. And so we're hungry for information. We need to understand what is happening to us. We need to understand, how do I understand this part of myself? And in phase 2, we're really kind of in this space of, I want to be in full absorption mode. I want to absorb as much information as I possibly can about what is occurring to me, because this is an abrupt life shift. It's a complete life shift. And how do I understand myself? How do I navigate this part of myself? And it's like, it's almost as if we suddenly have to navigate and learn to drive a car again. And it's like, wow, I have to learn how to drive this vehicle that I suddenly signed up for. And because of that, we're hungry for so much new information. So we enter the space of what I like to call, we enter full absorption mode. So it's like in the learning stages, we enter a space of absorption, integration, application. In phase 2, we are in full absorption mode. In that absorption mode, will have us hungry and vulnerable to everything. So this is where you find yourself reading the channelings just to feel a little bit more secure, or you find yourself reading certain information and then you find yourself falling in black hole tangents of conspiracy theories and all sorts of shit, and you learn about aliens and pyramids, and I totally get it. And it's like, this is where you start to kind of pick up that level of discernment of like, what is bullshit? What actually serves me? What actually resonates? How do I find out what resonates? So it's a very much a level of where you're starting to strengthen your intuition muscle. And the benefit of this stage is you start to become aware of your intuition, and you start to realize that you can strengthen your intuition, use that spiritual discernment between what resonates, what's in alignment with me, even though I don't know what alignment is yet, but what is in alignment with who I am, like what resonates with who I am versus what doesn't resonate. What do I feel just kind of wiggy about? And so what happens in phase 2 is we really kind of allow ourselves to enter this space of, I'm starting to strengthen my intuition. I'm starting to become more consciously aware of who I am. And in this space, the benefit really becomes, I'm going to use this ability to understand all this information, and now I'm going to move into stage 3, which is the growth and healing stage. So what normally occurs for people in spiritual awakening is they enter stage 3, which is growth and healing. And often this can look like spiritual stagnation. And I even have an article that goes great detail about this. Spiritual bliss to spiritual stagnation. And I think this is like one of those pieces. It gets a little bit overlooked because a lot of us, we can obsess about dark night of the souls and experiencing a double dark night of the soul, or we experience, looking for our twin flame. But spiritual stagnation is not like common. When you think about stage 3, what occurs is you have come to the realization that you're having a spiritual awakening, you're understanding your authentic self, and you're entering this stage of growth and energetic healing. And so what I realized, and this is what I've seen happen for a lot of people, is they'll have the spiritual awakening occur, and it will bring all of their shit up. It will literally bring up everything that is misaligned, not serving them, bad habits, toxic patterns, things that were drastically not serving them, bad friendships, toxic lovers. All of the crap will come up because it's saying you need to deal with this. You need to let this go. You need to heal this. You need to release this. And so this is where the resistance goes on overdrive. And a lot of people will freak out. They won't want to let go. And a couple of things will happen. They will either start to practice spiritual, have spiritual practices and meditations and start to get into energy work, start to do the healing work. And what they'll experience is like tremendous moments of spiritual bliss. And then it will completely go downhill because it's like they'll have that moment of spiritual enlightenment, they'll have the moment of spiritual bliss and spiritual awakening, ultimate peace, ultimate salvation, and then their ego will just come back online because they have all this shit to deal with. And so they'll have these moments of like, oh my God, everything is one, we are all love, and this moments of immense enlightenment. And at the same time, the ego will be like, yeah, that's cool and all, but you have like a fuck ton of things going on in your life right now that are keeping you out of alignment. So what occurs is we have all of this resistance come up that says, hey, it's time to heal this. Hey, it's time to clear this up. Hey, it's time to let go of that unconscious pattern. And so what I've learned over the years is this is where we start to become aware that we have a bunch of inauthentic programming, old unconscious programming that needs to be healed. And it's coming up through the ascension symptoms. It's coming up through our patterns. It's coming up through the toxic relationships. It's coming up through all of the ways, like the patterns in the environments and the people who are not serving us, because everything's a mirror. So everything that's inauthentic with who we actually are at our core, our authentic higher self, our authentic self, is now coming up for clearing. And what gets mistaken for clearing work is often resistance, negativity. Shit, why do I have low vibes? Shit, why do I feel so negative? What do I do about this? I feel like a victim of circumstance. What instead occurs if we have a hard time letting go. So the ascension symptoms are literally a byproduct of not letting go and refusing to let go. So in phase 3, we experience that feeling of refusing to let go, and we enter either a space of spiritual bliss to stagnation where we hit those plateaus where we think we're experiencing a lack of growth, but what is actually causing that lack of growth is actually like a restructuring, a reorganizing process of healing. And so it's like chaos and order going on simultaneously in the body. And so It's like we're experiencing these ascension symptoms, and now we're realizing that we can heal them. And so what occurs naturally is we've reached this point of awareness of moving, like, I understand spiritual bliss, spiritual enlightenment, and now I know I need to do the work. And so we enter this space of, I need to do energetic healing work. I need to clean up what isn't working. I need to go and learn deconditioning work. I need to learn subconscious reprogramming. I need to learn how to basically change myself from the inside out. I need to enter that space of healing, releasing, letting go, clearing up what isn't working, and essentially getting into that space in my mind where I can start to heal from these symptoms, from this negativity, from this negative emotion, from this resistance. And if I don't, I'm also in the awareness now that all this shit is coming up for a reason. So why wouldn't I change it? So it's like we start to realize that, like, you know, the old friends start to die away, and like the old environments that no longer serve us, they start falling away. And then we start realizing that the old self is dying. The old identity of who we were before a spiritual awakening is starting to dissolve and fade away from who we are. And instead, all of our new identity is starting to come online, and it wants to be brought through, and it wants to expand. But we have to do all of this, like, healing and letting go and releasing in the process of that. So this is where a lot of us experience that integration phase, where what we absorb, what we've been learning, is now on full integration into who we are as a person, who we are in our physical self, in our physical life, and that bridge of the gap is starting to close. So what inevitably happens in this stage 3 is you reach this crossroads point where the old you is starting to dissolve, and the new you, the energetic, spiritually awoke person, is starting to come online. And what I've learned over the years is what is occurring is your mind and your body and your soul is all starting to move back into alignment with who you are beyond conditioning, beyond the conditioning you were fed with. So it's like you're starting to remove those old programs, old habits, old behaviors, old emotional triggers. And what's occurring is you've reached this crossroads moment where the old friendships, the old relationships, the karmic baggage, the karmic relationships, all of that, the karmic careers, everything that was about your old life starts to change, dissolve, release, be eliminated. And essentially you enter a state of like loss of your old identity. So the ego goes through this point of realization of like loss. So you enter a space that is often known as the identity crisis point. And this is where a lot of people can experience ego death, ego identity crisis, where the old you and the new you are kind of duking it out, tug of war, battling. You know, you want to be the old you, but the new you is starting to occur. And there's this crossroads moment where the new you, the alignment of who you are, starts to become more powerful, more empowered. And as you do more of the healing work, the embodiment work, that mindset work, the emotional mind body healing work, all of the deconditioning work, this starts to have a stronger growth of your reality, and you're essentially experiencing like growth and like growing pains as you let go of this identity crisis of the old you and the new you, which is basically like cognitive dissonance. So you're experiencing that psychological conflict in the mind between the old reality, the new reality, the old you, the new you. And we kind of go through this like evolution of consciousness, this evolution of our identity. And so we literally experience identity shifts at the core level in this phase 3. Phase 3 is kind of like that turning point. It's the crossroads of where the old you has now fully accepted that you can't go back to your old normal, and you have to start embracing the new normal and how like what that is. Who is that person? Who is the person beyond conditioning? Who is the higher self? Tuning into the higher self, connecting with higher self, strengthening our intuition, strengthening emotional empowerment, emotional liberation. We entered a space of energetic healing work. We work on, healing tools like EFT, chakras, manifestation hasn't even come online yet. We work on just different healing modalities that help us release resistance, release different, like anything that helps us release that pent up, resistant emotional baggage, emotional energy, anything that helps us do that, whether it's hypnosis, EFT, chakras, energy work, mind body healing, all of these different mentalities, NLP, all of these different things, shadow work, energy healing, inner child work. There's so many different names. They're all the same thing. And essentially it's just about releasing that resistant energy from the past self. And so what happens in stage 3 is it's really like you make peace with the past, you let go, and what inevitably happens is we start to move into stage 4, which is the realization that you are the co-creator of reality. And so you start to realize that you're having a co-creative experience. You realize that the more that you're healing, the more that you're releasing, the more that you're like cleaning up the old you, the new you is starting to attract differently in your life. So this is where, in the point of awareness, where you're like, fuck, I'm manifesting all the time. I'm consciously or unconsciously creating my life. Whereas before, you weren't really aware you were doing that. You were just aware that you had programming, or you were aware that you're having a spiritual awakening. In stage 4, it's like manifestation starts to come online. And it says, when I heal something, I'm attracting differently. When I am working on the energy in the internal environment, then I'm starting to see different results. This is where it's like I'm healing my relationships. I'm noticing I'm attracting deeply fulfilling relationships, or I'm healing my self-confidence and my self-esteem. And now I'm noticing that I'm attracting more confidence and better opportunities in my life. I'm starting to notice that the more I strengthen my intuition, I'm making better decisions. So you start to see that there's this systematic shift of growth and energetic healing, spiritual bliss to stagnation to growth and healing, and then moving away from that identity crisis to a state of acceptance. And then now we start to move into this phase where we realize that Kundalini Awakening connects to healing, connects to manifestation. And over the years, my interpretation of this has really evolved. But the main point here is it's like, what the fuck? I am manifesting my life. What am I going to do about that? And so this is the point of awareness where I see people like they're aware that they're co-creating their life, and there's still so much baggage though in the growth and healing stage. So it's like we're moving from the integration to the application stage. And so the application stage is saying, it's time to take full accountability. It's time to start changing things. What do you want for your life? You're starting to change. Who is the aligned you? What does the aligned you want? Who's the next level version of you? What does she want? And instead you start to change the whole dynamic and the conversation of reality. And then you start to realize that, spiritual awakening was literally about coming home to my authentic self. My authentic self is my aligned self. Now I'm learning that I can co-create my reality. And I'm learning that essentially that I'm attracting and life is responding to me. And that's what inevitably happened with what I've noticed. Like I had a DMT experience and I realized that life is responding to me. And I had an ego death experience where it's just like I completely felt the energy of oneness and wholeness, and I realized all of the illusions were just holding me hostage in my mind, saying this is just an illusion of separation from you seeing your wholeness, from you seeing your enoughness, from you seeing you're already good enough, from you seeing you're already abundant, from you already seeing that you can enter this space in your mind where you are loved, you are whole, you are complete. And this is the space where we ultimately manifest. So in phase 4, it often looks like I'm learning to manifest. I'm learning how I am the co-creator of my life. I can make better decisions. I can make better habits. I can make better choices. I can change my mind. I can shift my energy. I can shift my life. I can literally shift and change my thoughts. I can literally shift and change how I'm attracting in my life. And so this is what I'll notice occurs, and I've seen this over and over and over again, is in phase 4, we'll move away often from just healing and it'll transition into manifesting, because we're taking away that I need to fix me, I am broken, I am not enough, that mentality, and we're changing it to I am whole. What do I want to create? What do I want to embody? Who do I want to be? Who is the next level version of me? Who is the new identity? We start crafting that new identity, and the biggest tool with that is manifestation work, because we start crafting that new identity through manifestation. And that's when it starts to transition into this point of we start learning that we're attracting what we are, life is responding to us, everything is a mirror, and we start coming into these terms of, universal laws, alignment, energetic match. We start to learn how we can strengthen our identity to understand aligned action. We start to essentially learn about the entire process of manifestation work, and how manifestation is literally like a tool to understanding our energy and how we're attracting the standards and boundaries of our life. So then, like, we've moved away from phase 3, which was all about healing and growth. And it's not that we don't have more growth, we do, but the growth has transitioned away from how do I fix myself? How do I fix me? I'm broken. How do I change things? How do I get away out of this woe is me mentality? And it starts to become life is happening for me. I can choose to work with this. I can choose to change this. I can choose to understand more of myself. I can choose to learn to be more me, my authentic self, who I am beyond conditioning, beyond all the programming I was fed, beyond my ego, beyond my limitations, beyond my limited perceptions that I held from my old identity. We start to move more into this manifestation current where we decide our programming, where we decide who we are, where we decide who we are becoming. We decide to step into this new identity. Who is the most authentic version of you? And it's all about bridging this gap into being more of ourselves, coming back home to our wholeness, coming back to the wholeness of who we are as our authentic self. And then often this looks like, well, what do I want to manifest in this world of being myself? What do I want? What do I desire? And our desire becomes this tool of ultimate expansion, which often leads to step 5, which is we start to have quantum leaps, quantum shifts. We start to experience full on alignment, and we create a soul aligned life. And inevitably in stage 5, what ends up happening is we enter a space of living from alignment. And Now, granted, before we go into stage 5, I do believe that we can kind of veer between stage 3 and 5, like over and over again, because we're going through growth, we're manifesting, we're learning to heal, we're going through growth, we're manifesting, we're entering our purpose, we're evolving our purpose. These stages all can kind of coexist together. And you can start to see that. But the gist of it is what I've seen, the more we step into our authentic selves, we start to live from a space of alignment. And what I've truly witnessed is the people who have had a spiritual awakening, they've done the work, they've done the healing work, they're working on, they're manifesting, they're living their best lives. Like they enter this space of becoming either a teacher or they live more in alignment with their purpose, with what they love, to do. And in stage 5, they start to have these quantum leaps, these immense shifts that occur in their lives, in their reality. They start to live more with their desires as their life. They start to build their life from their potent desires and their purpose. They start to evolve their consciousness. They start to teach people how to break the ancestral line. It's like this light network that is coming online where you see light workers, messengers, changemakers. In the stage 5, it's like we're choosing to live from our space of alignment through the evolution of consciousness. So we start to evolve our sense of purpose. We start to evolve our passions. We start to evolve more into our authentic self. And in stage 5, it's like we're not just waiting for enlightenment to occur. We're choosing to live into that space of enlightenment. And we're learning that life is a journey of evolvement. And instead of frantically like searching for that space of nirvana or enlightenment or bliss, we start to live our bliss. We start to embody the bliss. We start to live from a space of emotional liberation, emotional expression, emotional fulfillment. And we start to tear down the barriers of the old consciousness, the old paradigms, and we start to live from a new way of quantum intelligence where we start to embody the divine feminine, the divine masculine. We start to embody this space of where we're living from a space of more magnetism, more quantum. And instead, it's like this space in our mind where it's like we move away from the third dimensional concept of cause and effect and like separation. And instead, we start to move more into quantum expansion, infinite possibilities. We enter that space in our mind of the field of pure potentiality. We enter the space in our mind of moving more into purpose, more evolution of consciousness, raising our vibration of the planet. Naturally, we start to teach more, embody more, want to share this more. We start to live from a space of soul purpose. And I think it becomes almost this conversation of being on the journey of evolving our purpose. And spiritual awakening truly encompasses that as a whole because we're moving more in alignment with our authentic self of who we are. And so it's like we start stripping away all of this inauthentic programming and we start to move more into the authentic self who is naturally intuitive, naturally connected to the quantum field, connected to soul, connected to higher intelligence. And because of all of that, we start to move into this beautiful space of conscious awareness, living our purpose, creating a soul-aligned life, being soul-led and guided from within, being more magnetic, merging the masculine and feminine energy of, that internal and external world, and we start to bridge the gap of the energetic self and the physical self, and we start to literally create this in our life. So it's no longer a conversation of what do I need to heal, what do I need to work on, and instead it's like the Kundalini descension where we're starting to merge what we've healed, what we've processed, what we've integrated and downloaded from the higher planes of consciousness, we're starting to integrate all of that into the physical self. So it's like we're creating that bridge between heaven on earth. We're creating the bridge of heaven on earth. And it's like we're creating the downloads and we're merging them into the physical world. And then we're starting to essentially create them. And it's like now we're working as a vessel of the higher planes to the lower planes, and we're actualizing that into the physical light, like the physical world. And so when you think about it like that, it's like we're moving into our authentic selves, we're evolving into our authentic selves, and that authentic self is the aligned version of you, the next level version of you, the new identity of you. And then we start to move and flow into, like, there's always another level. There's always another next level version of you, because you're always evolving and you're always on the journey, and you're always on the journey of becoming. And so it becomes this deeper conversation of moving more into creating from alignment, living from alignment, and creating a soul aligned life led from soul versus fear. And ultimately, those are the 5 stages that I've personally witnessed, that I've seen like huge spiritual leaders like embody. And if you look at like just the spiritual like community, you can start to see this. And the more you're aware of it, it's like those 4 critical pillars that I've seen is like the spiritual roadmap of what we go through. You know, we're unaware. We're unaware that we're having a spiritual awakening. And then we move into a space of, I realize I am having a spiritual awakening. And then we go into that crossroads moment of duking it out between the old identity, the new identity. And we enter that space of spiritual bliss to stagnation, to spiritual bliss, to growth and healing, to growth and healing. And our ego kind of like is like, woo, what's going on? And we have that identity crisis, that ego death, that mini ego death. And then what occurs from that is we move into a space of manifestation in different ways of attracting in our life. And then from that, we move into a space of alignment. And that alignment causes those quantum leaps. And the quantum leaps evolves your purpose. This shit is like so fucking real. And like, you know, it's been almost 12 years. And I feel like I've never had such a clearer picture of understanding spiritual awakening. And I think that's because we're truly evolving as a consciousness, as a collective consciousness. And I think it's also because I've had a lot of healing work. I've done a lot of growth. I've done a ton of healing and energetic work. And I've learned how to manifest properly. And all of that was due to being on my own personal evolution of consciousness. And I think as a whole, you know, we are evolving as a collective. And the more that we come to awareness of this path, this journey, this roadmap, it becomes easier to live without the struggle and the hardship and the negative emotion and the resistance, because we start to not just accept the resistance, but we start to accept our past self, and we evolve into the new identity, the new self. And the more we evolve into the new self, well, that's where the magic really happens. Okay, so I'd love to know, where do you feel that you're at on the journey? Do you feel like you're in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, phase 5? I would love to know where you feel like maybe you need help in a particular stage. I can help direct you to some articles or videos. I'd also love to know, what are your thoughts about the 5 stages? Do you feel like I'm missing a stage? Like, I think when we conceptualize spiritual awakening, like, there's so many wild interpretations of it, because all of us have different experiences. So it's like, yeah, you could judge the way that I made the 5 stages, but at the same time, of course you have a different experience. Of course you have a different evolution. Of course you have like different perceptions. I just find there's so much power in being open-minded because our ego will often, whatever is unfamiliar, our ego will always try to be like, no, that's not true. Nope, nope. And we have to allow ourselves to be open-minded. Okay, so I know that was a lot to dig into. This is one of the most powerful videos I've made in a while. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, and I'll see you guys next week.